What's up, everybody? It's your boy AT2 here. Now, Joy Reid did an excellent job at the end of her show explaining why America has an immigration problem. If you guys don't know, America created its own immigration issue. And the reason being is because they were used to having black people doing the free labor. Well, after the black people stopped doing the free labor, they're like, well, we need people to do the cheap labor. I'm going to go ahead and let Joy go ahead and explain this, but please go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's go ahead and get into it while the intro plays. All right, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it, y'all.
All of these things that are being done when it comes to attacking Home Depot and rounding people up there, you're hurting Home Depot because a lot of the building trades rely on undocumented labor. It is not ideal. It is suboptimal, as they say, that this country is so addicted to cheap labor. This country began on the idea of free labor. It made this country into an empire. We were a cotton empire because of free labor. And after getting hundreds of years of free labor from black people, then this country rolled over to cheap labor. They tried Italian labor, which was down south. You had a lot of Italians in places like New Orleans who were working as sharecroppers, as cheap labor. They went and grabbed Puerto Rico in order to get cheap brown labor. We annexed a big chunk of Mexico, which is why there are so many Mexican Americans in places like Colorado and California and New Mexico. That was Mexico. But when the United States grabbed that country, they said, ooh, look, brown people, cheap labor. We brought in Chinese cheap labor to build our railroads. They provided the back-breaking labor to connect the east and the west coast of the United States. That cheap labor wound up living mainly in California, but they were literally excluded from continuing to immigrate here in a 1924 Immigration Act designed to keep the country as white as possible and completely exclude Asians from being able to...
This whole kicking all the color people out the country, that ain't nothing new. History repeats itself.
Migrate here, but they wanted their labor. They just didn't want them to come bring their wives and children and start families here because they didn't want them to grow in numbers. Well, surprise, surprise, they've already done that. Asian Americans actually outnumber African Americans in the state of California because people do bring their families.
Oh, yeah, I live here. Yep, that's true. They definitely outnumber us.
Men don't come here just to build railroads and not want to have a family. And so they have a family, and then all of a sudden, you've got more Asian Americans. But the reason that we have so much diversity in this country, the reason we have Filipinos here, which is the largest Asian American group, the reason that we have Puerto Ricans, the reason we have Puerto Rico is because of this constant quest to replace the free labor of black people with the cheap labor of brown people, and just serially replacing that cheap labor and then being shocked and surprised when those people have families and grow in number and then getting mad about the demographic changes.
And the crazy part is that there's never a plan to make them citizens. It's like, as long as they can work and they're able-bodied, come out here and work for us. But as far as making you a part of this country or making you a citizen, nah, we're going to make sure that we put obstacles in your way. And Joy perfectly laid out how after you couldn't get free labor from us, black people, you had to go find it from the brown people. Like, you was all like, okay, well, we're going to go ahead and get cheap labor at least. And, the thing about Mexico is that Mexico, California was Mexico as well as New Mexico, the Western Southern Division, or I guess Southwest, you would say. Mexico had that originally. That was Mexico. And so then, with the war and everything like that, they were able to America got cut. I don't want to say custody. Is that custody? Basically, they colonized it. I ain't gonna shorten the word. Colonized it. And then even some of those Mexicans that were here, they were then kicked out and thrown back to Mexico. Like, it's crazy, the history, when you really break it down and the reason why we have certain issues and certain problems. This happened a long time ago, but no one has ever put any solutions in place to solve it, right?
demographic changes are your fault, America. You wanted cheap labor. Now you got it. And now we have an agricultural sector that is very, very much dependent on undocumented labor. And by the way, it's not just the agricultural sector. The hotel and hospitality sector is too. Just ask Donald Trump, who's used H-1B visa labor at Mar-a-Lago for decades. He relies on foreign labor so that he can pay them less than what he would probably pay Americans to do, to be the porters and the cooks and the maids, etc., at Mar-a-Lago. And I'm sure at all his other golf courses. So even Donald Trump understands that foreign labor is necessary for him to be rich. And so all of these companies that are super reliant and dependent on all of these sources of cheap labor, they just don't like it when they then walk into a Walgreens and people are speaking Spanish.
And, you know, something that's interesting, too, is that we never hold these corporations accountable for hiring these people or using these people for cheap labor. We never go after the companies. I think the only company that I know that has ever got any kind of backlash was it Foster Farms? Ah, shoot, I'm probably saying the wrong, but it was some chicken company, right? It could be Tyson, Foster Farms. One of those got in trouble when they're hiring undocumented immigrants and then making them work for cheap labor and stuff like that. One of them chicken companies got in trouble. I'm pretty sure one of y'all will put it in the chat, but remember that's the only time I ever heard of like a company getting in trouble. Other than that, it seems like nothing happens to the company. I can't name any other company that has ever got in trouble for hiring undocumented immigrants at all.
Mad about it, but you do also want their work. So now if you start to terrify that labor, where they're too afraid to go to work in the fields, too afraid to go to work at Home Depot, too afraid to go to work at a restaurant, being a dishwasher or a cook, guess what's going to happen to those businesses? Businesses like Mr. Boyd's farm. He doesn't use undocumented labor, he says, but other farms do. And those farms are going to start to lose business, or food is going to be incredibly expensive because we're going to have to pay more for food that is being produced by either more expensive labor or fewer laborers. And so the idea of doing that and at the same time throwing up tariffs against imports and at the same time shutting down agencies that actually do business with farmers, it is as if Donald Trump wants the economy to collapse, wants things to be more expensive, wants inflation.
And he does, because he doesn't give a damn. Because at the end of the day, no matter when the economy crashes, you realize that these corporations, these billionaires, they still make money. I've never heard of any of the corporations or billionaires, quote unquote, losing money. Usually if they losing money, that's because they're doing bad business, right? Or something happened. But usually, a perfect example, during the pandemic, they were like record-breaking numbers for many corporations like Target, Walmart. Like they were breaking records during the pandemic. And yeah, you could say, well, because we needed them at the time and people were buying up everything. But if we're suffering, talking about the American people, if we're suffering, you should be suffering too. I mean, that's how I feel. If we suffering, you should be suffering too. There is no way you should be getting record profit. Not just, okay, we were able to make a few cuts and then this is how we were able to maintain. No, record profits. You guys can look this up. I'm not lying.
I'm not sure why he's doing that. And then at the same time, he could just as easily assuage his own supporters by doing things like releasing the Epstein files. That would keep them busy if you just release the things that you promised you were going to release. And he won't do that either. Why not?
Because he's in it.
There's a lot that's curious that's going on in the Trump regime at the moment. And we're going to keep looking at it. We're going to keep talking about it. We're going to keep noodling on it because there are weird things going on. It is a scary time. Please be safe out there. And unfortunately, if you're a brown person, you're now living.
Hold on, I just wanted to put this picture up so y'all can see it. Ding, ding, ding. That's why he won't release it. But anyway, let me let Joy finish cooking. Hold on, y'all. Here we go.
In white South Africa in the 80s, having to bring ID with you everywhere, having to bring your passport and proof of your citizenship everywhere you go, you might get arrested. What's that about? I appreciate y'all watching the Joy Reid Show. We'll be back.
I really like Joy Reid, the way that she can just break things down so easily. Like, yeah, Joy Reid is dope. But again, you guys, I just wanted to go ahead and give you guys that information regarding why America has this whole immigration issues. Yeah, once you start bringing people in for cheap labor, and then they start having families, because I mean, at the time they weren't able to mess with the white folks. So, and even then, you're gonna have mixed babies. So that doesn't solve the issue, right? Because you want purebred, you know, like an Aryan race almost. Because that's what they really want. They just don't want to say that word. But anyway, once they start multiplying, then yeah, you know, that basically creates the issue where they have more babies, more offsprings, and then on top of that, they are citizens because of birthright citizenship. And this leads into why they want to get rid of birthright citizenship. Yeah, America is ghetto. Remember that song, America is Ghetto? It really is. But anyway, please let me know what you guys thought about the show. And also make sure you guys check out Joy Reid. I will go ahead and post a link in the description of this video. I love y'all. Thank y'all for watching. But we out of here.